Don't forget to like the video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to stay updated with our latest stories. It had been one of those long, warm Saturdays that felt like they existed just to slow you down. The kind of day where time meanders and nothing feels urgent. I was sitting in the backyard of my friend Linda's house, the scent of grilled chicken floating through the air, mingling with the light hum of conversation and laughter. Her family gatherings were always big and lively. Lots of cousins, siblings, neighbors, and the occasional coworker thrown into the mix. I didn't mind. I enjoyed being around people, even if most of them weren't mine. Linda had been my closest friend since our kids were little. We'd weathered marriages, divorces, birthdays, funerals, life. I was 58 now, single for the past 5 years, and mostly comfortable in my skin. I wasn't really looking for anything. Not love, not drama, and certainly not someone else's cousin. I first noticed him when he came around the side of the house with a cooler slung over one shoulder. He moved easily, like someone who didn't feel the need to rush, but was always aware of his surroundings. He had that salt and pepper kind of hair that women my age secretly admired, and a worn-out denim shirt with the sleeves rolled up, hinting at arms that still did real work. He didn't smile right away, just gave a polite nod. But his eyes, those eyes, locked with mine for a second too long. Linda waved him over. "Hey Tom, this is my friend Claire. Claire, this is my cousin Tom, the one I told you about who moved back from Oregon." I reached out for a quick handshake. His grip was firm, but not overcompensating, the kind of touch that said he noticed details. Up close, I could see faint creases at the corners of his eyes and a subtle scar above his right brow, like something left behind from a long-ago fall or a forgotten bar fight. He looked like someone who had stories, but didn't go around telling them unless you asked. We exchanged pleasantries, talked a bit about the weather, how good the potato salad was, the usual. But then he asked where I was from, not just out of politeness, but with real curiosity. He listened. He didn't interrupt or look over my shoulder for someone more interesting. Throughout the afternoon, we didn't exactly follow each other, but somehow ended up near the same conversations, the same drinks table, the same shady spots under the trees. At one point, while I was telling a story about my granddaughter trying to cook pancakes with Play-Doh, I caught him watching me, not in a casual, wandering way, but like he was really watching. There was nothing crude about it, nothing possessive. Just honest, unapologetically so. Later, after most of the kids had gone inside to watch a movie and the crowd had thinned a bit, I found myself sitting alone on the edge of the porch. The light was softer now, filtering through the leaves in golden patches. Tom came over, holding 2 glasses of lemonade, one of them spiked with something a little stronger. "I figured you'd want the good kind," he said, offering it to me with a gentle smile. I took it with a nod. "You figured right." We sat in companionable silence for a moment, just listening to the distant chatter from the kitchen and the rhythmic creak of the porch swing. He turned slightly toward me. "You have this way of talking," he said slowly, "like you're remembering something while you're saying it. Makes a person want to hear more." It caught me off guard. I wasn't used to compliments that weren't about my cooking or my ability to organize a decent fundraiser. I laughed a little and looked away, suddenly aware of the way my blouse shifted when I breathed. "You're not too bad at talking yourself," I replied, or noticing. He smiled again, a little deeper this time, and I saw something warm flicker behind his eyes. He wasn't trying to impress me. He wasn't playing a game. That honesty again, quiet, steady, and strangely disarming. The air between us felt heavier, not in a suffocating way, but like something was about to happen, or could, if we let it. I didn't flinch away from it. I didn't try to change the subject. I just let it sit there with us, as the sky slowly turned that soft lavender color you only get in late summer. "I'm not rushing anything," he said quietly, almost like he could hear my thoughts. "But I noticed you, and I'm glad I did." I looked at him, really looked, and for the first time in a long while I felt seen, not admired for the sake of flattery, not pursued for the thrill, but seen for the quiet parts of me I rarely show. "I noticed you too," I said, my voice low. And we just sat there, two people in our late 50s, sharing a moment that felt new and familiar all at once. Nothing was forced. Nothing was planned. It just was. As the last of the daylight slipped away, Linda called out from the kitchen, asking if anyone wanted dessert. Tom stood up and extended a hand to me, not because I needed help, but because he wanted to offer it. I took it. And that was how it started, with a look that was too honest to ignore. He texted the next morning. Not a call, not something dramatic. Just a message that read, "Nice talking with you last night. Coffee sometime?" I stared at it longer than I should have, my phone resting in my palm as the sunlight crept across the kitchen counter. I'd already fed the cat, half finished my toast, and folded yesterday's laundry, but that small blinking rectangle of light shifted something in my chest. It had been years since someone had reached out to me without pretense, without need. Just a man asking if I wanted coffee. I waited 5 minutes, on principle, and then typed back, "I'd like that." We met at a small cafe not far from Linda's neighborhood. I chose a table near the window, close enough to the morning bustle, but tucked away just enough that we could talk without raising our voices. The chairs were mismatched, the coffee mugs chipped but charming, and the scent of cinnamon and ground espresso wrapped around the room like a familiar sweater. Tom arrived 5 minutes early, holding a newspaper and wearing that same easy, quiet expression. He didn't try to impress. He didn't try to charm. But there was something about the way he set his coffee down, the way he leaned slightly forward to hear me better, that felt intentional. Present. We talked about everything and nothing. How both of us ended up where we were. His years in Oregon, raising 2 boys. My years balancing work and motherhood, and how empty the house felt after the last one left. He asked questions, not the kind people ask out of politeness, but the kind you only ask when you want to understand someone. And I surprised myself with how much I shared. I told him how, after my divorce, I'd sworn off dating altogether. How I'd spent a year avoiding anything that felt remotely emotional, finding comfort in routine and solitude. I told him about the garden I started, the volunteer work, the late-night movies I watched under blankets with the volume low. And he listened, fully. Then it happened again, that look. It wasn't flirtation. It wasn't suggestion. It was deeper than that. As if he were seeing more than what I said, seeing why I said it. "You know," he said, cupping his mug, "you carry yourself like someone who remembers what it means to love deeply. That kind of thing doesn't just go away." I felt my throat tighten. I hadn't expected that. Not at 10 in the morning. Not over black coffee and a shared muffin. But the truth of it rang so clear, I couldn't dismiss it. He wasn't just saying something kind. He was holding up a mirror, gently, without judgment. I haven't had anyone say that to me in a long time, I admitted, my voice quieter now. He didn't rush to respond. Just reached across the table and lightly brushed his fingers over mine. The contact was brief, respectful, but it lit something warm inside me, something I thought had gone quiet for good. We walked afterward. No destination in mind, just 2 people ambling through a tree-lined path behind the cafe. It was still early enough that the sun filtered through the branches in dappled light, and the scent of pine mixed with the distant aroma of fresh bread from a nearby bakery. The world felt simple again, slowed down, real. "Why did you come back here?" I asked him, genuinely curious. He shrugged. "After my youngest moved out, the house felt too big, too quiet. I missed my people, missed things that were familiar. And maybe I was looking for something I couldn't name yet." Our steps slowed. The quiet between us wasn't awkward. It was full of unspoken things. I stopped near a small bench beneath a willow and sat. He joined me, close enough that our shoulders brushed. "You ever feel like you spent your whole life doing what you were supposed to, only to wake up and wonder what you actually wanted?" I asked. He nodded slowly, all the time. We sat there, both of us more still than we'd been in years. There was no need to explain. We had lived enough to know that sometimes silence holds more weight than words, that sometimes a look, an honest, unflinching look, says what a conversation can't. Eventually, he turned to me, his voice low. "I don't know where this goes, and I don't want to assume anything, but I like being near you, Claire. I like how I feel when I'm around you." I felt my chest swell with something I hadn't allowed in too long. Possibility. Not fantasy. Not some whirlwind escape. But something real, rooted, slow-growing. "I like being near you too," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. He smiled, and for the first time, I noticed how tired he looked. Tired in the way we all get when we've carried too much for too long. But there was light in his face now, like he was beginning to set something down. We stood after a while, walked back to our cars, promised to see each other again. As I drove home, the breeze through the open window tangled in my hair. I realized I was smiling without meaning to. It had been a long time since I'd felt that, since I got myself. But something about Tom, his presence, his steadiness, that look, had stirred a part of me I thought had gone still forever. And now that it had woken up, I wasn't ready to ignore it. Not anymore. We started seeing each other quietly. No grand declarations, no sudden leaps, just slow, steady steps towards something neither of us fully named. Lunches turned into dinners. Walks turned into shared evenings. I found myself setting 2 mugs out instead of 1, leaving a spare toothbrush in the bathroom cabinet, choosing wine he liked along with my usual reds. It wasn't about rearranging my life for someone. It was about making room, space I hadn't realized was still there. Tom never rushed me. That's what made it easy. He let things unfold at their own rhythm, like he understood that we'd both lived enough to know that the best things are often quiet at first. One night, after a small music festival in the park, we ended up back at my place. The kind of evening where the air is warm enough to leave the windows open and the music from the event still hummed in the back of my mind. We sat on the back porch, a bottle of white wine between us, the stars above, and the scent of jasmine from the garden drifting in soft waves. I never thought I'd meet someone again, I admitted. He looked over, not startled, not probing, just waiting. After the divorce, I built these walls, I continued, not to keep people out, just to keep me in. Safe. Predictable. I convinced myself that wanting anything more was selfish or foolish. I got good at being alone. He set his glass down and turned toward me fully. "I get it," he said. "I think we all do in our own way. We carry our stories in pieces. Some are too sharp to touch. Some we forget we're still holding." His words settled in me like warm rain on dry soil. I wanted to reach for him, not in some scripted, impulsive way, but because in that moment I felt the kind of intimacy that wasn't about urgency. It was about trust, being seen. So I did. I leaned in and kissed him. Not forcefully, not dramatically. Just a kiss that said, "I'm here. I see you. I'm not afraid anymore." His hands found my back slowly, carefully, like he was still asking permission even as I pulled him closer. We didn't rush it. The moments stretched, every breath and heartbeat filled with something soft and aching and entirely new. It had been a long time since I'd felt someone's body like that. Warm, real, present. There was no need to impress, no performance. Just two people, weathered and open, learning the contours of closeness again. We stayed in bed until almost noon the next day, talking in low voices, sharing coffee between kisses. He told me about a time in his life when he almost gave up on love, how he'd come close to settling into loneliness out of habit. I told him how I used to wake up in the middle of the night, not from nightmares, but from the emptiness beside me that used to be someone's breath, someone's warmth. There was no shame in it, no embarrassment, just honesty, the kind that fills a room without needing to raise its voice. Weeks passed. He started leaving flannel shirts at my house, and I didn't mind the way they hung on the hooks beside mine. We fell into a rhythm that didn't feel like a script. It felt like music we both somehow knew the steps to. Not perfect, not always in sync, but real. Then came the day he invited me to his place for dinner. A small house on the edge of town, quiet, cozy, with creaky floors and books in every corner. He'd cooked actual food, not just something reheated. Chicken in a creamy sauce, roasted vegetables, and fresh bread from a bakery down the street. I wanted to do it right, he said. We sat at his table, candlelight flickering against the window, and for the first time, I saw something shift in his expression. Not nerves, not hesitation. Something deeper, like hope paired with fear. That delicate balance we all carry when we've dared to want something again. Halfway through the meal, he reached across the table, took my hand, and said quietly, "Claire, I don't know what this is supposed to be, but I know what it feels like. And I haven't felt anything like this in a long time." I felt my throat tighten again. But this time, I didn't push it down. I didn't change the subject. I let it land. "I know," I whispered. "Me too." We stayed like that, hands joined, the food forgotten, letting the silence hold us. There was no need to label it, no need to declare it. What we had wasn't about proving anything. It was about being and choosing each other day after day. Later that night, curled against him beneath the worn quilt on his bed, I listened to the sound of his breathing, steady and real. The past didn't vanish, and the future wasn't promised. But in that moment, the present was enough. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for the other shoe to drop. I wasn't bracing for disappointment. I was just there, with him, and that was everything. Ask ChatGPT. We didn't fall in love in the way movies show it, sweeping gestures or wild declarations. It was quieter than that, more grounded. Like rain soaking into roots you forgot were still alive. That fall, everything seemed to slow down around us. The leaves began to turn, the air sharpened, and each morning carried that slight chill that made you reach for a sweater and someone's hand. Tom and I had become part of each other's routines without realizing it. Sunday breakfasts, grocery runs, helping him rake leaves in his backyard, while he teased me about not knowing how to use a proper rake. But we were also learning the weight of closeness. There were moments, brief, sometimes messy, when our pasts got in the way. like the evening we sat on my porch, and I casually mentioned how my ex-husband used to forget birthdays. Tom went quiet, not in anger, but in memory. He'd been married once, too, widowed young. A quiet kind of grief he rarely spoke about. That night, he told me about her. Not all of it, but enough to feel the space she still quietly occupied in some corner of his heart. I listened. I didn't flinch, because I understood. Loving someone after loss, whether by choice or by fate, means learning to live with shadows that don't belong to you. I'm not asking you to erase her, I said softly. I just want to be someone you make new memories with. His eyes found mine, wet at the edges. He reached over and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, the way he always did when words didn't feel like enough. You already are. As the holidays approached, I was nervous. Linda invited us both to her big Thanksgiving dinner. It would be the first time we showed up not just as familiar faces at the same table, but as something more. My palms were sweating the whole ride over. But Tom, calm as ever, placed his hand on my knee at a red light and said, "They already know. They've seen it. You shine when you're with me." It was such a simple thing to say, but it struck me deep. That night, surrounded by chatter and clinking glasses and the warmth of too many casseroles, I caught Linda's eye from across the room. She gave me a wink and a smile so knowing, I had to look away before I laughed into my wine. After dessert, Tom pulled me aside onto the back deck. The moon hung low and wide, casting silver over the grass. He held both my hands in his thumbs brushing softly over the backs of them. "Do you know what I think about when I look at you?" he asked. I tilted my head, a smile tugging at the corner of my mouth. "Tell me." "I think about how much strength it takes to open your heart again when you've spent years convincing yourself not to, and how brave it is to still believe in tenderness when the world hasn't always been kind." I didn't say anything at first. I just leaned into his chest, closed my eyes, and let the words settle. Being with him taught me things I didn't expect to learn at this stage in life, like how love isn't always fireworks. It's showing up again and again. It's folding laundry together. It's letting someone see you without your armor. It's forgiving not just them, but yourself. One afternoon, after the new year had begun and snow dusted our town like powdered sugar, we were lying on the couch watching an old black and white film. Tom looked over at me and said, "This feels like home." It was the kind of line that would felt too heavy if it hadn't been so true. Because it did. Not in the sense of four walls and shared furniture, but in the way I could breathe next to him, the way his silence never felt empty, the way his laughter found mine, even on the dullest days. I'm 58 years old. I've had a life full of joy and heartbreak, full of routines and reinvention. I never thought I'd fall in love again, not the way that mattered. But here I am, proving myself wrong. And it all started with a look. A look that didn't ask for anything, didn't promise too much, just offered truth. The kind of honesty that sees you fully, quietly, and doesn't look away. So if you're watching this and wondering if it's too late for you, if that window closed years ago, I'm here to tell you, it hasn't. Sometimes the next chapter begins not with fireworks, but with a man offering you lemonade and a look too honest to ignore. And thank God I didn't.